The one thing I will say is please proofread it carefully and get someone else to proofread it, because after you've been going over it, you're not going to notice the mistakes anymore. So you need somebody with a fresh eye to look at it. And you should also make sure that you give them a copy of the guidelines, because there may be some things they want to change that shouldn't be changed, because you put it in there the way that you did in order to meet the guidelines. Okay, on 26, I'm just going to mention inquiry letters. That's item I. Now, with foundations, sometimes they ask you to submit a letter of inquiry and they'll give you guidelines for that, but usually it's like 1 or 2 pages long where you summarize what the project is, and then they read that and determine whether or not they want to see a full proposal. With federal grants, usually they don't require anything in advance, but sometimes they'll ask for a letter of intent, and usually they just want to know whether or not you're going to apply. And the reason that they do that is they want to have some idea how many applications they're going to get, because they have to set up a panel of reviewers. Usually each proposal is reviewed by 3 people. It may depend on the grant, but they need to know how many proposals they're going to get so they can have enough people to review. So in any case, that's something that you have to look out for and make sure that you do it if it's necessary. Any questions? Okay, I'm skipping to the next page. What I have on the next couple of pages are some sample instructions from actual requests for proposals. The first 3 pages, 3.5 pages, are actually from the RFP that we're going to go over in more detail later. But what's nice about the federal applications is that one of the things that makes them difficult also makes them easier than foundations, and that's that they tell you in a lot of detail what exactly they want in the proposal. That means you have to provide a lot of information, but it also means you don't have to guess and figure out what it is they want to know. They tell you in a lot of detail what they want. Now in this, and I'm not going to go through this in a lot of detail because you can read it later on, but this is from the Agency for Children and Families Strengthening Communities Fund Nonprofit Capacity Building Program. And they have a section where they describe what should be in the project description in general terms. And that's what this is. And it's I will highlight just a little bit of it. It says the project description should address the activity for which federal funds are being requested. Okay, which is kind of obvious. When you skip down to objectives and need for assistance, clearly identify the physical, economic, social, financial, institutional, and/or other problems requiring a solution. Incorporate demographic data and participant/beneficiary information. And we talked about that before. That's statistics and a description of the problem and the consequences of the problem. Results or benefits expected. Then the approach. Outline a plan of action that describes the scope and detail of how the proposed work will be accomplished. That's what is it you're going to do? Who's going to do it? When is it going to be done? Where is it going to be done? How are you doing it? How much of whatever service are you going to provide? That's where you get into the details. And that's where, with the federal request for proposals, when I first worked on one, I was kind of confused because it's like they already tell you everything they want done. What am I supposed to write? But this is what they want you to do. They tell you generally what it is they want done, but they want you to describe how is it that you would do it. And that's where you really need to sit down and figure out with your staff, volunteers, board, whoever, exactly how you would make this activity happen. That's what it is they want to know. They already know what the program is because they're telling you what it is, but they want to know how you're going to do it. They also want to know why your organization is qualified to do it. So that's really what you're trying to explain. Okay, we talked about much of the rest of this. If we skip to the next page, the middle of the next page, logic model. How many people here are familiar with logic models? Okay, not that many people. This is something relatively new, but I'm seeing more and more it being required. A logic model is basically a chart. It's your project in chart form. So at the top of the page, you will have what it is the project is. Then you'll have a column with what resources you need, like you need staff people, you need a place to hold the activity, you need money. Another column with what the activities are. You're going to hold 10 meetings over the course of the year. You're going to hire staff, whatever those activities are. And then you'll have another column. Sometimes there's a column for short-term outcomes, that by the end of the project, 25 people will find a new job. So you'll have your short-term ones. For your long-term outcomes may be that 15 of those 25 people still have that job and they have purchased a home. I'm just making up outcomes. But that's essentially what a logic model is. Now, I've gone to workshops that were like all day long just talking about logic models. The Kellogg Foundation has an excellent guide that describes what a logic model is and how to develop one, which is free on their website. If you go all the way to the back of the document, I have their website listed there. So you should definitely download that and start reading it so that you will know what a logic model is when somebody asks you. You can say, oh yeah, I know all about that, because you're going to need it. Okay, staff and position data we talked about. Okay, third-party agreements, we also talked about that. Again, do that early in the process. Letters of support, draft them yourself, give them to other organizations, and ask them to rewrite them and send them to you. Budget and budget justification. I mentioned to you that the federal government has forms for that, which you can download off the internet. And you can download that ahead of time if you want to just see what the forms look like. Okay, I'm on page 30, and the second half of that page and the next page is part of the instructions from a request for proposals by the DC Children and Youth Investment Trust Corporation. I put this in here because it gives a pretty good description of what a program outcome is versus an activity. Also, this SMART acronym you'll see here and there, and actually it's in the federal RFP that I gave you: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-related. That's what the funders want, so that's what you're going to have to give them. Now, something in here that I think is, well, maybe I shouldn't even bring it up, but a little bit confusing is the program outcome. Now, this is how this funder defines the outcome. And they give an example of youth will feel that they are making it and will succeed in the future. Frankly, I think that's more of an impact or a goal, because usually the outcomes are more measurable. If you go on the next page all the way at the end of that, they give an example of 95% of young people in the program understand the basic elements of music production, so on and so forth. I think that's more of an outcome. Usually the outcome is something that's very measurable like that. By the end of the program, X% of participants will be able to do so-and-so. And usually the goal is more general, that people will have jobs and be able to support their family. Or you will improve the community environment. Something like that that's less measurable is usually what the overall goal is. So anyway, just to add a little confusion there. Okay, we're going to skip now to any questions?